Even though Hitman 2016 is just a month shy of being 10 years old, Sapienza, to this day, is most players' favorite map from the trilogy, which is a testament to how many people this mission caters to. Whether you enjoy the sandbox aspect of the mission, or the fun in disguises, or the Sasso gameplay, you can find all of that and more in Sapienza, the jewel of the Amalfi Coast. The reason you are here is because your two targets, Silvio Caruso and Francesca De Santis, are developing a DNA-specific virus below the Caruso estate under the caves in a biolab. Your objective is to eliminate these two people to stop them from developing the virus, as well as destroying the prototype itself. Sapienza's biggest difference compared to Paris is the sheer size of the small Italian city during your visit. I mean, the Caruso mansion itself is almost as big as the entirety of the Sanguine fashion show. In most maps, this would usually be a downgrade since the missions would involve a lot of watching 47's extremely slow jogging, but in the case of Sapienza, the place is so dense of content that walking around never really feels like a waste. This means that we will have a lot more content to explore, so let's just dive right into it. When playing the mission for the very first time, you will begin in the town square, where immediately in front of you are four options. Investigate the accident to the left, attempt to infiltrate the mansion from the front, venture into the town from the right, or look at the shops behind you. You are given much more freedom to explore over Paris's strict red carpet. To your immediate left is the cycling accident, where you will likely unravel your first mission story. You can also find a disguise here that will grant you access to the mansion, or if you are clever enough, you can climb up a ledge that will get you into the mansion through the ruined left. There isn't much more here, since this is a very small segment of the overall map. Behind you are several shops, such as the art shop, the ceramic shop, and the ice cream shop, connected to the town hall, where you can find another mission story and a good vantage point for sniping. To your right leads a street to the beach and the church, more on that later. On the street are more shops and your ICA safe house, which I think was a really creative decision. Like I said, I really like playing like a professional and clean assassin, which is part of the reason why I'm a Sasso perfectionist and why I made a whole segment for that. And the safe house helps make that fantasy just a little more real. You can find all sorts of useful stuff up here, such as a kitchen knife, a gun, your smuggled item, and an explosive golf ball. The golf ball is important to place here, because if you listen during your briefing, you could see Caruso play the golf, and if you can add 2 plus 2, you can piece together a really fun kill opportunity. If you go out the back door, you yet again have 4 ways to go. Jump into your neighbor's house to snatch a disguise and a key card that will allow access to the staff entrance of the mansion, climb down the wall to get to the front area of the estate, or climb down a pipe to get down to the dining patio on the beach, or climb down to another neighboring empty house. Sapienza has a lot of these little doorways and climbing spots that you may not notice during the first few times, but experienced players will have a lot more options to choose from, which is what makes this map so replayable. This type of design is called a snail house. The best example I could find was IKEA. You have this huge, sprawling space with a clear path forward, but also a lot of little side doors that will make people familiar with the layout travel much faster. This is what Sapienza's layout perfectly mirrors. The other type of design is called a fortress. Fortresses are tightly secured, mostly as a big building, with much more strict trespassing/hostile areas, and are generally harder to get around to. The entirety of Paris was a big fortress, but there will be more clear examples coming up on the next mission. Anyway, back to Sapienza. My personal biggest problem with the layout is that the church and beach areas are hardly related to the mission itself at all. What reason would you have to go to the graveyard or tunnels when all 3 targets are inside the estate? This was made this way so that Sapienza could have 3 more bonus missions surrounding the town, but it detracts a lot from Word of Tomorrow, sadly. A pity, because the layout would have deserved a 10 out of 10 otherwise. I will talk more in detail about the church and beach areas when we get to the bonus missions. You can find a crack wall near the beach that will light up when using Instinct, basically detective vision from the Arkham games. You can see me use it a lot during the footage. If you have brought the golf ball with yourself from the safe house, now is a good time to blow the wall open and gain free access to the biolab. More on that later. Next to some fishermen, you can find a closed-off seaside path that will lead you to the ruins and the back entrance of the mansion, as well as another biolab entrance, this time protected by a camera and sealed by a keycard that you most likely have not obtained yet. If you climb up the bridge and head right, you can head into the heavily guarded Sapienza ruins. The ruins can serve as another vantage point or a place to set up some really sick kills. However, outside that, the ruins aren't used for much compared to how big they are. Now it's finally talk about the mansion itself. Villa Caruso is one of the best designed fortresses in the game, with almost 8 entrances to the villa, most of them being accessible in your stunning suit. Let's look at the villa floor by floor. This is the bulk of the mansion, with most of the important locations placed here. If you took the flower delivery disguise at the very beginning of the run and pass a frisk check at the entrance, you get to the front part of the estate, with the garage and entrance hall being in front of you, the wine cellar and kitchen to your right, and an entry into the garden on the left. If you venture into the main hall itself, you can access the mansion's interior. However, this is a much more tightly guarded section than the outskirts, so entering without the disguise is pretty tricky. Francesca, one of your targets, resides on the top floor, however, so you do have to find a way to reach the top floor, similar to Paris. The wine cellar connects the entire villa through a tunnel system and the wine storages, which is again very similar to Paris's design in a good way. You can even snatch a scientist disguise here. If you go straight through the entrance hall, you can arrive at the back of the villa to the garden square. This is where Silvio, your first target, is wandering around in the majority of his loop. The interactivity here is simply phenomenal. You can do so many things in this place to create kill opportunities. It just all depends on your creativity. You can also find the conservatory and Francesca's room here, as well as a staircase connecting all parts of the mansion together. The back of the garden connects to the beach and the ruins via a bridge. If you go up to the stairs in the entrance hall, you get to the first floor. You will find only staff working here, with mostly empty rooms currently being cleaned. The only 2 rooms here worth mentioning are Mother Caruso's room, which is part of a mission story, and the top floor of the observatory, where you can find a gigantic telescope and a VHS tape. You can look into the telescope to gaze at the stars, and this immediately begs the question if you can make Caruso do the same somehow. The observatory and the rest of floor 1 is connected by a balcony that can either open up to the roof or go back to the corridors that the staff is cleaning. If you are wearing a lower tier disguise, such as a house staff or a butler, you will have to be free to have access to the second floor where Francesca resides. Otherwise, you will have to acquire a stronger one, like bodyguard, or have to climb up a pipe. The second floor consists of Francesca's office, Silvio's bedroom, a bigger living space that is currently being worked on by mansion guards and staff, and an outside area with guards taking breaks. This floor is the place where Francesca is going to spend most of her time at, unless you manipulate her loop by either destroying the warriors, calling her as the golf coach, or triggering a lockdown. The floor has 2 main staircases leading up to it, and your only other option is by coming in through the roof or from the attic above. This means that getting to this floor is going to be a challenge, no matter whether you are playing with disguises or suit only. I personally enjoy both playstyles, but I prefer suit only since I think that after playing a map enough, and if its layout is designed in a way with traversability in mind, you will not be needing disguises anymore, only to trigger certain events. This is the case with Paris for me, since the level is so excellently built that you don't need a disguise to go anywhere. Let's return to the mansion though. Next to the camera room, you can find a staircase leading up to the attic, the highest point of the mansion. There are only 2 guards here, whom you can find some useful intel from if you eavesdrop on them. If you knock them out, you can have the entire attic to yourself. There is a safe here, which contains the DNA sample of Francesca, proving that Caruso has found out that Ether, the company developing the virus, is spying on him and is keeping the sample as a failsafe. You can also find multiple spots here to drop propane flasks into the fireplaces below, causing big explosions seen as accidents. This is also one of the few places where you can find a katana. In short, this is Villa Caruso in all its glory. I think the layout of it is fantastic, easy to memorize, and intuitive for newer players. However, below the mansion in a cave system is the Ether Biolab, where scientists are currently working on the DNA virus prototype. This is easily the most guarded section of any map so far, crawling with NPCs and guards in a very tight and cramped space. The Biolab has several entry points. You can enter from the garage of the mansion through a frisk track, blow up the wall at the pier, walk in from the ruins, or acquire a keycard and walk in one of the doors. The Biolab is fairly small, with there being only 3 smaller spaces: a security room, a laboratory, and a place where the virus itself is being built. The actual challenge of the lab is 1. Getting in, 2. Navigating the area, since this is actually a hostile one, with both the scientists and security disguises having a ton of enforcers, so you're not left with a ton of options. This is because taking out the virus is not the most difficult thing ever. Getting to it is. This provides a healthy challenge for newer players and makes the objective appropriately hard. The overall layout of the map is also top-notch, as far as exploration and traversability are concerned. The sunny vibes also give the map a really inviting feeling, with security also being at the lower side, except at the heavily guarded biolab. This makes exploration on the map pretty fun, and gives a totally different vibe from Paris. Let's move on to the targets of the mission. Silvio belongs to the Hall of Fame of Hitman targets. I will admit, when I first played Sapienza, I was still indifferent towards the game. I did play the Dubai demo and I enjoyed it, but I thought that I was just gonna buy it, have a good time and forget it. However, after finding out just how many ways you can murder these two, that was when I truly got hooked. Silvio's loop is pretty short, with him roaming between the garden, the dining hall, the observatory and the fireplace next to it. Since you have to enter the mansion to kill Francesca, you don't have to go out of your way to eliminate him. This also means that you won't have to wait a lot, since he doesn't walk a lot between stops like Novikov and goes through his cycle rather quickly. Let's take a look at his kill opportunities. First, the explosive golf ball. You can acquire the golf ball from the safe house back in the town, and smart people can immediately discover the connection between the golf ball and Caruso's passion for golf. And sure enough, when you first see him, he will probably be playing some golf with his coach. If you replace the balls with the explosive, when nobody's looking, the next time Caruso takes a swing, he will find himself in a rather unfortunate situation. This is one of the most memorable kills for me in Sapienza because it is such a creative idea for an elimination. Also, while he is playing the golf from the ruins, you can set off one of the T cannons that you have previously loaded to fire on him, resulting in a kill that is somehow accidental. I love this game. From the villa's roof, upon shooting the electrical box near the observatory's tower, the roof will open, which makes Caruso walk up to the top floor of the observatory and look into the telescope for a while. If you are seeing him from the top of the church tower, you can get an incredibly satisfying sniper shot on him. However, my favorite non-mission story kill with him is a bit tricky to figure out. You see, normally when you panic a target, they issue a lockdown, which means they will be carried to a safe place by security. If you, however, manage to panic them again during the lockdown, you can make certain targets, like Caruso, escape. Caruso will try to escape Sapienza by a seaplane. If you have previously loaded the right cannon and waiting for the opportunity, you can fire on him and shoot his plane down with a fucking cannon. How amazing is that? Caruso is the first target with a fleshed out backstory. We know going into the mission that he has family issues because he was abused, both mentally and physically, by his mother, Isabella. Fun fact, you can actually meet Isabella back in the training mission in the yacht. She's obviously an actor, but this is still a pretty cool reference. We can see his issues unfold while in the observatory, and in several mission stories, as well as in his temperamental behavior towards his guards and employees.
Out! If Ether wants to complain, they can send me a memo. Go!
Most of his kills exploit this family drama, which is one of the few times I've felt empathy for the target. The only other case is Sean with his OCD, but he bombs children, so it's lessened a little. A fun fact about him: if you are wearing the Plague Doctor outfit and walk up to him, he'll be terrified and is gonna run away. Just a cool little Easter egg I wanted to share. Similarly, Caruso is the perfect target. He genuinely has almost no flaws. A short but still opportunity-rich loop, multiple interesting and unique kills, all available suit only, and a fleshed out backstory. Alright, I gushed about poor Silvio way too much. Let us move on to the secondary target of the mission, Francesca de Santis. I think out of all these side targets in the game, Francesca is definitely one of, if not the best one. The only problem with her is that Silvio is too much fun to mess around. Francesca inhabits the top floor of the villa, conducting an investigation about Caruso, and she seems to be searching for something. Her loop consists of 3 main locations: her office, the balcony, and the room that is currently being searched. You cannot really find any gaps in her normal loop, so you are gonna have to set up an accident or lure her out of the top floor. I think this is good design, otherwise Sapienza would have been a tad too easy. Silvio is not a crazy hard target to isolate or accident kill, and Francesca provides a decent challenge, with the virus being the final skill and knowledge test. She actually does not have a lot of ways to kill her outside of mission stories, however, what you do have is pretty interesting. Firstly, if you destroy the virus before taking her out, she will march down to the biolab to investigate. The contamination chamber normally has toxic gas in it, lethal for those who do not wear a hazmat suit. This is to kill the virus if it ever was to escape its cage. However, this gas can be turned on and off from outside. When Francesca goes to investigate, the deadly gas will be switched off, but you can turn it back on, labeling it as an accident. Additionally, in Silvio's room, you can find a model ship. Upon shooting the ship, you can discover that Caruso has already made a DNA-specific virus sample, specifically for DeSantis. This means that this item, when thrown, will immediately end her life, but does not affect anyone else in the mission. So you can just throw this to a spot you know she will walk to, and she's done for. That's actually it for notable kills. What makes Francesca interesting is her relationship with the other target, and her special interactions with the virus. I have a feeling she was a bit rushed in development, since Silvia got all the attention from the developers, with Francesca being left with only a few interesting kills. But at least what she has is really good. Everybody seems to hate the virus, but I personally don't have a problem with it. I think that secondary objectives offer a fresh perspective on the targets, and Sapienza would be way too easy without it. The virus is located under the mansion in the biolab, sealed in a contamination chamber with scientists in hazmat suits watching and running tests on it. If you get a disguise yourself, you can safely enter the chamber yourself. The virus will die if the heat gets too high in the chamber, but increasing the heat is an illegal action. So you have to first distract everyone in the room by messing with the equipment. Then turn on the heat and kill the virus. However, there are 3 simpler solutions. First, you can just shoot it with a sniper through the glass. Second, you can drop a stalactite on top of it by shooting it. Third, you can insert a stolen USB into a computer above the security room, which will kill the virus instantly, or throw an EMP onto the computer. You can then make your escape on the plane nearby. Overall, I think the virus is a good addition to Sapienza. I understand that it doesn't have too much variety, but it's literally why we are here, so it makes sense that we have to destroy the prototype. First day on the job. This is a very Italian mission story. You have to steal your neighbor's kitchen staff costume and keycard and infiltrate the mansion as a cook. You can then talk to the chef, who explains that Caruso always hates the spaghetti he makes, and he doesn't know what to do. He tells you that maybe if you try it, he'll like it. For the spaghetti to be excellent, you have to get an expired can of spaghetti sauce, and then poison the food. Then ring the dinner bell when done. Caruso will come out to eat, and if you put the expired sauce in the food, he'll love it because it reminds him of his mother. Right after this wholesome moment, he dies from the poison you put inside his food. Like I said, very Italian. Memory lane. I like this kind of mystery stories more, where you have to find an item and activate something, rather than get a disguise and do a disguise-specific action, because the second is less troublesome and more convenient in your suit. So for this mission story, you have to take the VHS tape on the first floor of the observatory, then insert it to the projector below. This starts playing a montage of Silvia's family with a very weird song playing in the background. The next time our target enters the observatory, he will command his bodyguards to leave, giving you a pretty much free kill if you hit beforehand. Pretty simple, maybe overly so, but at least we get a bit of background for him. The good son. If you investigate the crash and see the flower that were the guy's clothes, you can find a bouquet of flowers near his truck. You can then enter the mansion and move to the garden, where Silvia's mother Isabella rests. You can then place the flowers on her grave, which will have Caruso come to it, and once again sends his guards away to be at peace. You can do whatever you want to him and hide his body in the nearby garden shredder, and get rid of the evidence by turning it on. Same as the VHS tape, simple but gives a bit of background. Beyond the grave. I felt a little sad doing this one. The mansion has several antique things in it, like a gramophone, an old chairlift, and a service bell. Triggering these things will make Caruso think that his mother's ghost is back to haunt him, and will have a complete mental breakdown. So much so that he faints in the middle of his mother's room, leaving you to easily snap his neck and get out of there. Pretty good, once again expanding Caruso's personality and being pretty convenient. The case most peculiar. Wait, Francesca can have mission stories too? For this one, you have to find a detective in the back end of the town. You can see that he's currently taking a little nap, and by activating the radio next to him, you can wake him up. He will then head out to a meeting place on the pier with Francesca. Now from here you have two choices. First, you can knock him out, steal his disguise, and attend the meeting yourself, where you will be given an easy opportunity to take her out. Or as the secondary option, you can just let the guy attend the meeting and shoot them down with an antique cannon from afar. I like that you don't have to necessarily become the detective, and the cannon kills are always satisfying, so it's pretty cool. Absolution. I'll be honest, this should not be a mission story. Basically, you can find a deceased scientist in the morgue. You can then steal his clothes and keycard, and that's it. That's the mission story. What makes this a tiny bit more interesting is that you can overhear his colleague think about the morals of working at Ether. She actually has the USB that can shut down the virus from the computer, so this is actually a pretty useful way of taking it out. Let's move on. Memento. Memento requires you to find a code to a safe in the attic, which contains the DNA sample of DeSantis. After that, she will move next to an active fireplace, which gives you the opportunity to run to the attic and drop a propane flask into the fireplace, blowing her up in an accident. At first glance, a pretty forgettable mission story. However, this one kind of brings out the puzzle element of the game, as the opportunity isn't presented to you in a silver plate. Rather, you yourself have to figure it out how to kill her, since she's surrounded by quite a lot of people. Hostile environment. Again, I think this is a waste of a mission story. This is like a tutorial on how to infiltrate the biolab and then destroy the virus. But I think it's a much better choice to let the player figure these out themselves, because it's not very complicated. Especially that they most likely took the explosive ball and spotted the cracked ball. I have a couple better ideas for mission stories, like making Francesca turn against Silvio by showing her the hidden virus sample in the ship, or something like that. Catharsis. Catharsis is pretty good. It strongly falls into the category of steal an important person's disguise, sneak into the compound, meet up with your target privately, then take them out. There's at least one of these on every single map in Hitman, but this is the core identity of the series, so who am I to judge? So the important person this time is Dr. Oscar Lafayette, who is here to fix up Caruso's troubled mind. You can find him at the main square, drinking some coffee and enjoying the Italian sun. Obviously, you are obligated to ruin all this by making him vomit into a trash can, then subduing him and dumping him into a bigger trash can. This game somehow strikes a perfect balance between being extremely goofy and extremely serious. Moving on. After obtaining the psychologist disguise and entering the mansion, you can have a one-on-one therapy session with Caruso, where you can recall the terrible childhood memories of poor Silvio. Then kill him the same way his mother tried to back then, by smothering him with a pillow. I felt kinda bad for the guy while writing this. Honestly, Silvio didn't deserve to be blown up by a cannon. By candlelight. Long story short, it's time to play Ladies as Man and seduce your target by stealing the golf coach's phone and inviting her down to her room, where she reveals that she was sent here to spy on Silvio. Before drinking from the wine you have hopefully poisoned beforehand. The thing is, it's hard to differentiate between these mission stories when most of them have very similar elements. You're gonna have to do with the footage. You know what? Maybe in future videos I'll just summarize them all together. Sapienza feels very James Bondy. Stopping a mentally ill genius and her scientist partner from releasing a DNA-specific virus is a pretty nice idea, but I still like the setting of Paris more with the fashion show. So Paris and Sapienza are the two ends of the Hitman spectrum. One of them is played in a smaller, focused environment, with more emphasis on moment-to-moment gameplay, while Sapienza is more based around being huge and just letting the player get lost and explore. A smart move from IO to include both these maps next to each other, since there's a better chance that the player will take a liking to one of the archetypes. The two maps are also different by lighting and colors. While Paris was set at dawn, with mostly deep blues and reds, Sapienza is set at broad daylight in a beautiful evening with much brighter colors to match. So overall, the theme is very different this time, and gives away the small Italian seaside town vibe really well. It was so successful that it will be repeated in the next game. When it comes to the targets and overall traversal of the map, replayability is truly unmatched, maybe even surpassing Paris. Whatever you can think of, you can probably do in this map. Like seriously, you can enter the mansion in at least 5 different ways, not including the doors leading to the biolab. And once you're in the mansion itself, you have so many ways to approach a situation, it truly is a masterclass in map design. The village itself, along with the church and the coast areas, will all be used for bonus missions, 3 in fact, which I will analyze when the series is done. The one thing bringing down the replayability is the virus. Since it is an object, taking it out is innately going to be a more linear process, thus hindering the replayability of the mission. I think Sapienza is the point most players start getting into Sasso because they're good enough to at least give it a shot. I think that crafting these stealth routes inside a mansion is some of the most fun I ever had with the game. You have a lot of branching directions, although since the entire state is restricted, you have to be a bit careful while traversing. Still, you can get into every major point of interest in the mansion if you wish, and that is makes Sasso gameplay feel great. The coming maps, such as Marrakesh and Bangkok, will be much more restricted, which bring those maps down in my eyes. When it comes to the targets, Sapienza also excels in that topic. Most goods are easily accessible since they are usually item-based, like the hidden virus or the golf coach's phone or the explosive GoPro. The list just goes on. The biolab yet again stands out by being extremely restricted, and also being a hostile area, which means immediate death when spotted. Navigating the caverns is basically impossible, so you have to EMP the kill switch laptop or shoot the stalactite or snipe the virus. I'm in the minority here when I say I don't mind the challenge of the biolab. Sure, it's not easy, but Sapienza wouldn't be difficult at all if not for the lab. So I am happy that it's there, and every other aspect of the level is simply phenomenal. Overall, I believe Sapienza is just a tad overrated. The strengths of the map are very clear, and there's a ton of fun to be had. But if after all these years, Sapienza is still your favorite, you are either really dedicated or delusional. Thank you for watching.